So as you saw by the title of this episode, we are talking about internalized homophobia and how to overcome it. First and foremost, I wanted to take a minute and say, if you are struggling with your sexuality, you feel lost, or you just feel like giving up because the road seems too long, believe me when I tell you this, you are not alone. There are thousands, if not millions of people who feel or felt the way that you do at one point, because I know that I did, and here I am, right? So doubting yourself or your sexuality is not your fault. It is a shared experience amongst many gay and bisexual men due to our environment, right? So whether that be family, religion, culture, or society, human beings are built to survive, and we do that through community. So if you don't feel like you fit in, shame ends up playing a major role conforming you to the group for the purposes of survival. In fact, it's actually believed that shame was one of the evolutionary emotions that was developed to help the human race survive. So if you grow up in a heteronormative environment that was not supportive of your sexuality, it makes sense why you feel ostracized or different. Let me tell you, there is nothing wrong with being different. In fact, every person who ever made a difference in this world was different. You have purpose and meaning, and I promise you, you will find it if you allow yourself to embrace who you are and stay the course. I say all of this because, as you can see, again, by the title of the episode, we're talking about internalized homophobia, its impact, and how you can overcome it. But before we jump in, I wanted to introduce myself. My name is Danny, and I want to thank you for tuning into the Deep Penetration podcast, and I want to thank you for tuning into this episode specifically. I am a self-esteem and love coach. I work with gay and bisexual men on all matters of relationships, attraction, self-esteem building, dating, self-confidence building. So if you want to learn more about what it is that I do, I'll leave links to my website, my stand store, the free gift that I've created, all my social media platforms, and my email. So if you have any questions whatsoever, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. The only thing that I ask is that you subscribe to the podcast and that you share it with other people, because it helps to keep the podcast going and for me to be able to continue to have these very open and candid conversations with you guys. So what is internalized homophobia? Essentially, it's a negative, it's any negative feelings you have about your sexuality as an LGBTQ plus individual. And interestingly enough, a lot of gay and bisexual men don't realize that they have internalized homophobia. For many of you, it is possible you've suppressed those thoughts and feelings for so long that they have just become a part of who you are. Internalized homophobia can impact you in many different ways, right? So one of the ways is mental health issues. It can contribute to depression, anxiety, and lead to these feelings of shame, resentment, hatred, guilt, and just overall self-esteem. There's also relationship issues that come with it. It can impact your dating life and relationships because you struggle to connect with people on a deeper level. There's also the identity conflict side of it, right? It can cause conflict between your sexual identity and other things, such as your religious beliefs, your cultural practices, or anything that has to do with your place within your community. So what are signs you could be dealing with internalized homophobia? The first one here is negative self-talk, right? So constantly criticizing yourself for being gay or bisexual. The second one is you're avoidant of LGBTQ plus spaces, right? So avoiding certain events or communities because you're afraid of judgment or rejection. And it's also possible you don't want to be seen in those spaces because you're not out yet. The third one is hiding or denying your sexual orientation. So concealing or denying your orientation from friends, family, or colleagues because you're afraid of discrimination or disapproval. The fourth one is seeking approval, right? Seeking validation from others, especially those who hold homophobic beliefs or appear to live this kind of perfect heterosexual life. The fifth one is overcompensation, right? So overcompensating by conforming to certain stereotypical gender norms or engaging in risky behavior to prove your masculinity or your heterosexuality. But allow me to be clear about something. If you are someone who is absolutely comfortable with your masculinity and presenting more masculine, that does not mean you are conforming to a gender role. Simply put, that's just you being you, right? What I'm referring to is repressing certain behaviors, mannerisms, or personality quirks that you perceive to be more feminine, and therefore you actively try to suppress them and conform to more of a masculine way of being. Here's the thing. Everyone is going to have a different subjective experience with internalized homophobia, right? Even if some of the signs are present or are there, right? Although we all live in this current reality, our perception of that reality differs from person to person. And therefore, my reality may look very different from yours, right? I can vividly remember one of my first experiences with internalized homophobia. I was entering my freshman year of high school, and I told myself that this experience was going to be very different. All throughout elementary school and middle school, I was bullied by the boys in my class for being gay, even though I didn't even really know what that meant at the time, but I just knew that I was different. I knew that I was being ostracized. I knew that I was being pushed aside. And I was tortured for it, right? So when I was accepted into the high school I really wanted to attend, I made a promise to myself that I would take control of this experience and not allow myself to be perceived as gay. So what did I do? I joined the sports teams, I joined the clubs, I made friends with guys, something that I always struggled with when I was in elementary and middle school. And I created this kind of persona that exuded confidence, right? And I remember about halfway through the year, there was this girl who liked me. Her name is Kimberly, and she pursued me hard. But I turned her down because I wasn't attracted to her. And she started a rumor in the school that I was gay, because I didn't want to go out with her. And the first thought that ran through my head was, here we go again, right? I could not believe that this was happening again. But luckily, my sister was a senior at the same high school, and her friends confronted Kimberly, and she never spoke to me again. She never spoke about it again. And the rumor kind of just like faded, and that was it. But regardless, the feelings that came up in that moment, as I reflect on it now, clearly indicated I was trying to push away or repress my authentic self, because being bisexual meant I wouldn't fit in and I would be ostracized again. I went on to play in varsity sports. I dated a cheerleader. I got the leading roles in the school plays and the musicals. I was nominated to be prom king. And to be honest, like, if I'm being real with myself, like, those were some of the best 4 years of my life. But then I have to ask myself the question, why? It's because I finally felt seen. I felt accepted. I felt valued. But as an adult, I look back on those 4 years and I recognize the impact that that had on me. I equated safety with repression, something I had attempted for years and never succeeded until then. Those 4 years cost me 13 years of internal conflict and confusion. So how does internal homophobia even start? It can develop through a variety of different factors, including societal attitudes, family upbringing, cultural influence, personal experience. The list can go on and on, right? So I wanted to pinpoint some of the more common ways it develops. And the first one is usually social stigma, right? Living in a society where homosexuality or bisexuality is stigmatized can lead individuals to internalize negative beliefs about your own sexual orientation. Messages from media, from religion, from peers and other social institutions that portray being gay or bisexual as abnormal or wrong can 100% contribute to these feelings of internalized homophobia. The second one is family rejection, right? Negative reactions from family members about your sexual orientation can profoundly impact your self-esteem and identity. Rejection, condemnation, or just a lack of acceptance within your family can lead you to internalize shame and guilt about your sexual orientation. I would say that your interaction with your family and your family's acceptance of your sexual orientation has a huge impact on how you view yourself and how you navigate the world as an adult after that point. The third thing here is cultural and religious beliefs. Cultural and religious teachings that condemn homosexuality or bisexuality can instill feelings of shame and guilt if you identify as gay or bisexual, and you grew up in the church. Cultural norms that emphasize traditional gender roles and heteronormativity can also contribute to internalized homophobia. And this actually makes me reminds me of this meme that I saw that I thought was hilarious. And the reason why I'm bringing this up, and the religious one definitely had an impact on me personally, because I grew up very religious in the sense that I went to Catholic school my entire life. I honestly thought that I was going to join the seminary when I graduated from high school. That was like a goal of mine, was to become a priest. I led all the religious retreats at my school. I was that kid, right? And I still consider myself somebody who has a very close relationship with God. But that is my own personal relationship. I think every single person has their own relationship with their vision of creator, right? So universe, spirit, God, whatever it is that you want to call it. But I remember seeing this meme that made me really laugh. Some of you might be offended. Some of you may think it's hilarious, but I can't remember the exact wording, but it was like, oh yeah, an all-powerful God that created all the universes in a short amount of time is really worried about your dildos. And that's really kind of what got me when I was thinking about like, is this really something that is such an abomination, right? I think that if you're a good person, I think that if you do good things, I think if you are of service to others, I think that if you are in alignment with yourself, then, I don't think that there's an issue there, but that's just my personal opinion. Anyways, I totally digressed. So the fourth thing here is traumatic experiences. And this is a big one too, right? Because I think being rejected from your family can be a traumatic experience. I think being rejected by your religious community can be incredibly traumatizing. I think that being rejected by peers and colleagues can be very traumatizing for us gay and bisexual men, or even anybody who is part of the LGBTQ plus community in general, because our sexuality is very interlinked with our identity. So it can be very complicated. Experiencing discrimination, harassment, or violence based on your sexual orientation can highlight those feelings of shame and self-hatred. Traumatic events like bullying, hate crimes, rejection from certain romantic partners can also contribute to that feeling of needing to repress who you are as a person. The fifth one here is lack of representation, right? Growing up in environments where LGBTQ plus identities were invisible or misrepresented can make it feel or can make it difficult for you to develop a positive sense about yourself. The absence of role models and positive representation of LGBTQ plus people in media, education, and popular culture can also contribute to those feelings, right? Because we don't see anybody that we can look up to. And it's also very, very, very much in our face that heterosexual relationships and individuals who are idolized in media are primarily heterosexual. So of course it's going to make you feel a certain type of way about your own sexuality. The sixth thing here is an internalized heteronormativity. We talk about internalized homophobia a lot, but we also have to look at internalized heteronormativity. And these are internalized beliefs about heterosexuality as the norm or the ideal that can lead to views about same-sex relationships to feel abnormal because you've grown up seeing heterosexual relationships and heterosexual ways of being as the norm. The internalization of heteronormative values and expectations can contribute to feelings of inadequacy and self-rejection if you identify as somebody who's gay or bisexual. The seventh one is coping mechanisms, right? In some cases, you might develop internalized homophobia as a coping mechanism to navigate hostile and unsupportive environments, right? Suppressing or denying your sexual orientation can be used to avoid discrimination or rejection. But it can also lead to internalized shame and self-hatred. It took me 2 years of dedicated self-work to reach a point of self-acceptance that I can proudly say that I'm bisexual, that I can hold my partner's hand in public, that I can say I love you to my boyfriend and plan a life with someone I would have fought tooth and nail to avoid or push away. So how did I do it? The first one was self-awareness. I had to take a step back and unravel the web I had created for myself. I had to sit with myself and analyze my belief systems and evaluate how many of those beliefs I truly believed myself or they were indoctrinated. I had to have a heart-to-heart with myself and unpack the reasons why I didn't love myself enough to accept myself. Was someone's approval of my sexuality or the life I wanted to lead truly worth a lifetime of misery and self-hatred, regardless of their position in my life? I think we often avoid conversations with others when the conversation that counts the most is the one that we have to have with ourselves, right? The second thing here is seek support. Surrounding yourself with people who are accepting of you and who love you for who you are is a crucial piece to the puzzle here, right? When I work with clients or I mentor youth, I always advise or recommend reflecting on the people in your life and picking a couple of them, maybe even one, that you know is going to be accepting and open-minded and compassionate and understanding to share your sexuality with. The people that struggle the most are the people who come out without any kind of safety net, a support system whatsoever. Community is so important. And therefore, building a community of accepting and understanding individuals will help you to accept yourself in that process. The third thing here is coaching or therapy. Had I known about coaching years ago when I was going through this process of unpacking my internalized homophobia, I would have absolutely taken advantage of it and used it as a resource. For some of you, therapy is your preferred support, and that's great, right? Therapy was instrumental in my processing and healing, and it really depends on what resonates the most with you. The fourth thing here is education. Educate yourself about LGBTQ history, culture, and rights to develop a sense of pride and belonging within your community. You know, this is something that I just dedicated myself to this past year, and it has been an eye-opening experience. Reading stories about people who experienced the same emotional and mental torture I did and overcame it gives me a sense of peace and belonging. I know that I am not alone in this journey, right? I share this experience with other people. And in that knowledge, it makes me not feel alone. The fifth thing here is challenge negative beliefs. Challenging negative beliefs and stereotypes about homosexuality and bisexuality through your critical thinking skills and exposure to diverse perspectives is going to be so important, because in your ability to defend that and to protect that, you start to feel a sense of ownership about your sexuality, a sense of pride about your sexuality. And that over time can help you to combat that internalized homophobia. It is not the absolute cure, but it definitely can help. Remember, you are enough. You are made exactly the way that you are meant to be. Do not allow other people to tell you otherwise. Do not allow other people to convince you that there is something wrong with you. At the end of the day, this is a journey. It's going to be a difficult journey, but I'm telling you that you can do it. And when you reach the other side, it is absolutely freaking amazing. And if you need support with that, and if you need help with that, I am more than happy to help you through that. I hope you found this episode to be helpful. I hope you found it to be insightful. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. And I hope you're having an incredible day or morning or night or whatever, wherever you are in the world. And I will see you in the next episode.